Welcome to the Marketing AI Show, the podcast that helps your business grow smarter by making artificial intelligence approachable and actionable. You'll hear from top authors, entrepreneurs, researchers, and executives as they share case studies, strategies, and technologies that have the power to transform your business and your career. My name is Paul Raitzer. I'm the founder of Marketing AI Institute, and I'm your host. Thanks for joining us for episode 15 of the Marketing AI Show. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to tell you about our show sponsor, MarketMuse. MarketMuse Suite, an AI-powered content intelligence and strategy platform, analyzes millions of articles on demand, uncovering gaps and opportunities for better content. Imagine an on-demand content audit that automatically identifies your best and worst pages, content with high ROI potential, quick wins, at-risk pages, and more. MarketMuse uses AI to accelerate content planning, creation, and optimization so you can build authority on your topics. Get started for free today at marketmuse.com. Now, onto the show. All right, we are back for our second weekly, Mike, our new show format where Mike and I sit around and talk about trends, big ideas, topics, timely relevant stuff that we find interesting and hopefully you find interesting. And this one is really interesting to me.
Yes, I'm excited.
So basically the way so Mike, if you've, again, new listeners, so Mike and I work at Marketing Institute together. I am the founder and CEO. Mike is the chief content officer. We are also co-authors of the new book, Marketing Artificial Intelligence, which if you're watching on YouTube, we have this lovely new oversized cover, framed cover of the book that just arrived today from BenBella. So shout out to Matt Holt and the BenBella team for a really cool backdrop for today's podcast. Book comes out June 28th. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But so today's topic, basically what Mike and I do is we keep a running list of like interesting things to talk about. And then we have a weekly meeting on Fridays, I think it is. Like, right? Is that right? We do Friday mornings? This is new. I mean, we're in the second week. So I'm talking about this as though we've been doing it for a year. So every Friday we get together and go through some potential topics and either pick a few or just pick one thing. And there was some really interesting, timely stuff we were working on last week for our Marketing AI conference. And so just like, I think Mike threw us like, we should do something related to events or to the conference. And then it just sort of came to like, let's just share what we're doing. Like, we're trying to solve for selling tickets and sponsorships to a conference in real time, trying to think about how do we do this smarter? Like how do we use AI ourselves? How do we get into better personalization, better prediction, the things that we teach people AI does? Events are like the perfect place for this stuff. And we do events. We have friends who run events. Like, I don't know of the innovation happening in the event marketing space where AI is really being talked about as a driver. And I know, Mike, like you again, it was like as soon as it came up, you and I were kind of on the same page with it. I don't know if you're seeing anything I'm not seeing.
No, that was a kind of a key takeaway from what we're about to talk about is that, we test a ton of different AI tools and technologies across a number of different marketing use cases. And a lot of them power parts of the business in content marketing, in advertising, in general marketing campaigns, email marketing, and event marketing. When it came time for us to sit down and really get smarter about our event marketing strategy, there's not, from what I can see, much innovation in AI at all so far in the event marketing space. Like Paul, you had mentioned, our virtual event last year, we found exactly one platform that did anything with AI. And, it was cool, but like it probably doesn't even scratch the surface of what's possible. So what I'm really excited about for this conversation is we're going to kind of theorize some ways that if the technology existed, we could start using AI tomorrow to do event sales. But yeah, it seems like a really not mature space when it comes to solutions that use AI.
And I mean, so I'm relatively new to the event business. I ran an agency for 16 years and sold the agency, and the Institute was growing in parallel to the agency. And then once I sold the agency, the Institute became the core focus. And the Institute is a media company. We publish a lot of content, tons of content, really valuable content for different audiences to educate them about AI and make it understandable and approachable. We run a conference, an annual conference, which we're obviously going to focus on today. And then we have an online education platform, AI Academy for Marketers, with on-demand courses. But to oversimplify the event world, if you're not in the event world, if you have a extremely loyal, engaged audience, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 readers, subscribers, whatever it may be. So you may be a media company that launches events. You may be a tech company that has tens of thousands of loyal customers. You launch an event, like you're basically just convincing people who already love you and know you to come and be together, to be part of a community together. It's not an easy sell by any means, don't get me wrong, but to start a community from nothing, to start a movement from nothing, which is what we tried to do. So in retrospect, it was crazier than I thought it was at the time. Like, I at the time knew it was kind of crazy. Now I look back to 2016, 17, 18. I'm like, what in the world were we thinking that we could pull this off? So basic premise, we'll kind of hit the rewind button real quick. Start the blog, Marketing Institute blog, 2016. Ramp up, got 5 to 7,000 subscribers by late 2018. So my original plan was, once we got to 10,000 subscribers, and I'm talking like people who've subscribed to the newsletter, attended webinars, like giving us opt-in contacts. I'll generically call subscribers for our purposes today. Once we got to 10,000, I felt like, well, that's a reasonable number. You get 3% of those people to come to an event, like you got a decent starting point. But we decided to go earlier. We were about 7,000, but it was a really interesting group. It was lots of major enterprises, VCs, influential investors, some high profile people. And it was like, I think we're onto something here. Let's give it a go. Like, what the heck? So I put a bunch of my own money in to like launch this conference. So 2019 rolls around, we split the Institute off as its own company, and the conference is its core thing. So Mike's plugging away, writing a bunch of content. Organic traffic's going from 5,000 to 10,000 to 15,000 users a month. Things are going great. And then the goal for the first conference was 300 attendees. So we do that. We run it in Cleveland. It was amazing at the convention center in Cleveland. If you've never been there, overlooks the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Browns Stadium in Lake Erie. It's a beautiful venue. And from an operational perspective, makes a ton of sense, because the costs obviously are nothing close to what it would do New York, LA, Chicago, Austin. If you focus in on the AI hubs, like there was just no way we could afford to put an event in those major markets right away. So 2019 goes, and it's like just through the roof amazing. Like incredible speakers, like Douglas Rushkoff did a closing keynote from Team Human, was amazing. Like Karen Howe from MIT Tech Review, Mitch Joel, David Meerman Scott, like just phenomenal. The experience was incredible because the team that ran it, the ops team, they ran Content Marketing World for years. So Kelly Wetzel and her team came in as like outside contractors, ran the event, just like world class. So just like, you're coming off this high, like that was amazing. Didn't hit the revenue goals we wanted. I lost quite a bit of my own money, honestly, in the first year. But that was just part of the deal. Like, you knew it was going to happen. So we had 300 attendees from 12 countries. And if I miss anything, Mike, in this historical here, like, throw in. So 300 attendees, 12 countries, 28 states, predominantly North America, but there was a spread across the world. So we go into 2020 thinking, all right, 600 attendees, run it back in Cleveland. This is going to be huge. And the audience keeps growing, user base is growing. I'm starting to think about raising money, like things are heading in a good direction. Then obviously March of 2020 hits and the world changes for everybody. And we all of a sudden don't have an event. And, COVID sort of wipes out the event business for us and everybody else. So we scrapped 2020. We launched AI Academy for Marketers instead in July of 20, with 40 on-demand classes and 5 certifications, and thinking that that's where we'll go, just online education in the near term. That goes fine. 2021 rolls around. We think we might be able to pull an event off, and then it becomes real clear early in the year that that's not happening. So 2021 is virtual, about 300 attendees to the virtual conference, and then going into 2022. Now our audience is, 5 times the size it was in 2018, 2019. So you get more and more confidence in your ability to build a conference business, because now we do have a growing community, much more to pull from. But what we face like every other event, and this is why we thought this might be an interesting conversation to have, is there's a lot of obstacles. Like, let's be real about where we're at in the world. So when we look at the challenges we face right now, the headwinds to running a conference, and the why we need to be as smart as possible and use as much tech and every tool we have at our disposal. We obviously still have COVID. There's still lingering concerns. There are travel concerns depending on other countries. So you are almost like rule out other countries coming in because you have no idea. So it's almost like if someone does come in internationally, it's almost an outlier at this point. But you can't control that. I personally, as of January 2nd, when I go back and look at the investments I was making on January 1st and 2nd of this year, did not foresee the NASDAQ crumbling 50% or more. Um, so it is what it is. But the tech industry, which again is our major advertisers and sponsors, now again, it's not all publicly traded companies that would sponsor us, but it's all connected. So the world where you draw from a revenue perspective there, everyone, not only individually, but as a company, is getting affected by the current economy and by inflation. And you have to not only look at that from advertising perspective and sponsorship, but which companies have the budgets to travel, like this discretionary income for pro dev or whatever you bucket you put it under, is that getting sucked out? And where's the data on that? Obviously there's geopolitical issues going on. There's war happening. Some of the tech companies we work with, some of our sponsors are in Kiev. Like this is the real world, and these people have way other concerns, much more real concerns that, like, I don't even want to be talking to them about anything related to this. I'm just checking in on them personally. Like, where are you guys at? How are the employees? Like, and you have to just consciously be aware that, like, us selling sponsorship is the furthest from our concerns when it comes to that kind of stuff. And then the other is like, people just don't want to travel as much. Like, we got used to being at home. So any headwinds I'm missing, Mike? Because I feel like
Well, I haven't checked the news in the last 2 hours, so
seriously.
maybe there's new ones. No, yeah, it's just a lot has come together that have, it's like, it's really the uncertainty, right? We can't necessarily sit here and say, okay, the war in Ukraine versus the economy is going to be an obstacle to events. We're not sure based on who comes, but the point is they both could be. Like, we have to get so much smarter about how to actually navigate a very crazy world. And, there's always been crazy stuff going on in the world, but it just really emphasizes to me, like, we've been preaching that people need to be smarter about their marketing. And this was pre-COVID when things were fine. Now it just seems like an absolute critical necessity to me. Like, the playbook of the past just straight up is not going to work anymore.
Yeah, and kind of along those lines, so I'm gonna read to you all something that I wrote last year. So this again is like COVID was happening, but these other things weren't yet. And this was at the front end of our ticket sales strategy, our internal brief for our team on the ticket sales strategy. And anybody who's familiar with Marketing AI Conference, the tagline is more intelligent, more human. So our whole thing is teaching you about AI and what it's capable of, but so that you live a more fulfilled life and have a more fulfilled career, and that we build better businesses as a result, not that we save a bunch of money, cut staff, and maximize profits. Like, that is not what we're here to teach. So this is an excerpt. And what I started doing is every marketing strategy, not just for the event, but anything, I would start off with these two elements. So the first is more intelligent. And so for our ticket sales strategy, this was last year, but again, it applies to this year. The first bullet is predict high priority contacts based on probability to purchase. So we need to make predictions, which is what AI excels at. If you follow us at all, like, we talk all the time about marketing is basically just a series of predictions about everything. So predicting high priority contacts based on probability to purchase. Predict 2022 sales. So when we're forecasting and I'm talking to my event team and I'm trying to tell them how many people are going to be there and how much spacing we need in each room and things like that, they want accurate numbers. Well, how? Like, that, it's a really hard thing with all this uncertainty to get to predictions. So it's like, can we get better at making predictions? The third, predict sales of future institute initiatives such as online education. So you're trying to go beyond just this event and say, okay, well, if we launch something new for online education play at the event, are we able to predict sales of those. And now I'm trying to look at revenue now. And I'm the CEO. Like I got to think a lot of things. There's tactical things, but I got big picture things and I got investors and things like that. And then the last is driving efficiency and marketing resource allocation, like time and money through more targeted campaigns. Get rid of the waste. Like it's just, there is so much waste. And the bullet I don't have here, Mike can attest to this because he runs a lot of our email and the newsletter and the content. The thing I worry about all the time is the noise. So we have 29,000 subscribers. They do not all care about Macon. There's a big chunk of them who probably are never going to come to a conference, but they may care about the content marketing stuff we put out. Like, how do we stop blasting? And this, again, this is universal, like demand gen, lead gen, whatever you're in. How do you stop blasting a bunch of stuff to the all contacts list or to just like the big segments just because you need to hit a number, you got to get the open rates or click rates or whatever it is? Like, enough. Like, I hate it. I hate doing it. I hate getting those emails. And it's like, we have the tech to be better than that. So that's okay. So the more intelligent, predicting probability to purchase, predicting actual sales, predicting sales of other initiatives, and then driving efficiency and resource allocation. And then my other one of like getting rid of the noise. More human. So this is like, okay, if we do that, now ideally we'll talk about using AI to do those things, but if we can do those things, more intelligent marketing, the more human side is understand individual learning paths, journeys, and needs. So make it about the people, about the actual end customer, learner, the leader. Like, what do they actually need? Don't just blast them a bunch of stuff that they don't need. Like, what are they here for? And getting to know that information. Then prioritizing contacts for one-to-one engagement, nurturing, and community building. So again, rather than spending a bunch of time sending emails to like 29,000 people as though we don't know who they are, who are the 100 people we should be having conversations with over the next 30 days and getting to know personally and being able to use that to enrich the way we communicate with these people. That then leads to personalization of messages and experiences and marketing at scale. Like, once we have a better understanding of these people, now we can create these incredible experiences for them online and offline at our events. And then the final piece, and again, Mike can appreciate this as the guy who has to create a lot of this content, focus the staff on strategy and creativity while investing significant resources in interpersonal communications with our audiences. So rather than doing a bunch of the mundane stuff, like building all the lists and analyzing the data and running all the pivot tables and doing all this stuff, can we free Mike up from having to do that? So Mike can actually just like sit back for 10 minutes and think about creatively how to solve these problems. So that's our more intelligent, more human framework. I'll kind of stop there, Mike, and see if you got anything to add to it.
No, that's absolutely, yeah. I think it's a good way to frame it because I honestly think, and I get it, everyone is having a hard time doing relevant marketing, cutting through the noise. But too often people think of the more intelligent part as let's use some automation or let's look at an analytics report. Yeah, that's all good, but that's really not what we're talking about anymore when we're talking intelligence. That's like the price of admission in my mind. And then the more human part, I think a lot of people end up just in this kind of, half-baked definition of it where we say, oh, okay, that email's personalized. We put a personalization token in, or we switched out a little smart content in like a line or two to 3 different segments. It's like, okay, like again, it's better than nothing, but that is no longer even what we're talking about. Things are light years beyond that in what's possible and what's also necessary. I think all the points you mentioned of just all the headwinds. I mean, everyone knows it, even if you don't say it. Like, everyone is overwhelmed, stressed out. If they get free time, they're taking all the free time they got from like working from home now and reinvesting it in like what they find important. And chances are it's like not your marketing email. So it's probably gotten dramatically harder in the last 2 years alone. And so I think it's critical to look at it through those lenses.
So again, we're just kind of running through why we're sharing what we're sharing, why we're going to talk to you about like a specific our event and ways we could be smarter with what we're doing and hopes you learn something. So another one that has created this for me personally, like this great sense of urgency. Like, we've been talking about AI for, I mean, on and off since 2014 as an institute, as an entity since 2016. We've invested thousands of my personal time, thousands of hours of Mike's personal time, hundreds of thousands of dollars of my own money, millions of other people's money. Like, this is no small thing we're trying to do. And we're trying to create a movement, like get people to care. And here's where I arrived at recently when we think about the kinds of companies that will exist in like, I would put it like 5 to 7 years where it becomes essential, probably 10 to 12 where it's just, it's a game over. And what I mean by that is there's three types of companies that it, like, let's say 5 years from now that will exist. There will be AI native companies. So these are organizations that wouldn't have been created without artificial intelligence. The predictive power of AI, the language and vision technology, they just literally wouldn't be able to do what they do as a company, as a core offering, if AI didn't enable it. So those are like the newer companies that have been created since probably 2011, 2012 that were based on what AI enabled. Then there's the AI emergent companies. These are the organizations that figure out they can build smarter business models. So Netflix would be a prime example here. They used to mail DVDs. There was no AI in that. Now, how many versions of the thumbnail image do you see on the thing? Like they switched over to where their business model today, not possible without AI. So you have AI native, AI emergent. And my belief is every industry, every company will have to be AI emergent. Like you won't have a choice because someone else will build an AI native company better than yours. So if you're a marketing agency or a graphic design agency, or if you're a freelance writer, whatever it is, you have to solve for AI. You have to be AI emergent, or else someone's going to build an AI native company that's better than yours, smarter than yours, more efficient than yours, better performance than yours. So AI native, AI emergent, obsolete. That's it. Those are the three options for the types of companies that exist 5 to 10 years from now. And so like, I believe that with all of my soul, that is where we are going as an economy. And so like this urgency for us that like we have to make people care, the marketers, the business leaders, the investors, the educators at universities, like they have to care because we don't have, this isn't a decades in the future thing. This is a now thing. So that's that. And then the other thing that happened and what led to us saying, let's do this one is last week we were working on the lead scoring model for Macon ticket sales. And so this is really the jumping off point to today's conversation. So what we started doing is last year when I built the lead score, it was all manual. We were not using AI. Now, HubSpot, which is our CRM, does have a native machine learning model in it that prioritizes leads based on some factors. It seems as though the main factor in it, again, machine learning, you're not supposed to be able to just like open up the doors and see what's in there, but it would appear based on a lot of testing that it was heavily reliant on whether or not someone was in a deal pipeline, if you had a lead and what stage they were in. So it's not overly complicated stuff, number of page views, number of email clicks, things like that. You could pretty much build your own version of it and know exactly what went into it and have it probably be better representative. So that was a very early effort by HubSpot though, like probably 2016, 17. I don't know that if they've improved it or not. I have not used it in 2 years. So this is not a ding on HubSpot. I don't know. There are companies out there like Mad Kudu is an example. People swear by Mad Kudu. Like I know Jeff Coyle, I don't know if he's done the case study on this thing or not, but like Jeff loves Mad Kudu. Like he was the one that put us onto it, Jeff Coyle at Market Muse. So like we know there's products that are really good at this, but they need like 2,000 conversions a month to justify using machine learning. So what we looked at and said, okay, how do we just build a smarter human-based model, like just smarter rules in this thing? And so last year we went this model where we looked at intent signals, loyalty signals, and engagement signals. But it was a evolution, but it wasn't an end product. And so we started there 2 weeks ago and we're looking at Macon ticket sales for this year. And we said, okay, how do we make this smarter? And so what we ended up doing, and we're going to kind of talk through today, is this idea of intent signals are things that someone behaviorally told us they are interested in Macon. They clicked on a register button, a buy now button. They looked at event pages. They downloaded a promo code, like whatever. Like they did something that specifically tells us they know this. So I don't need to like waste my time emailing them and saying, hey, Macon is an annual conference that happens in Cleveland. And we have these amazing speakers and all this amazing content. And you're going to get this advantage in your career. They know that. Like we know that because their intent signals tell us they know that. Then there's loyalty. These are people who have previously bought from us for a conference or online education are the two main components. They've spent money, which means they've shown some dedication to the organization or some interest and demand for the content we create. And then there's engagement, which is just like all the other stuff. So number of overall page views on the site, email opens, email clicks, are they a member of the community? Like just all these things. You mash it up. There's like 50 signals in that one. The intent one had like 16. The loyalty one had, I'm almost done building it. I built it this morning, honestly. Um, I think it was like 12, like not a ton of signals. And then the engagement one, I think it was like 46 or something. And I'm not done with that one yet. And then we have an ICP one that we're building. That's like another score that says, okay, is this someone that's our ideal fit? Which for us is like director level and above, probably 200 plus employees. And then in one of our 7 tier 1 industries. And I'm probably gonna forget one off the top of my head. Let's say it's financial services, CPG, retail, healthcare, marketing agency slash professional services, software, internet. I'm forgetting one or two, but
I think that's about it.
yeah, basically they have a ton of data. They need to personalize content, and they've probably been using AI for 10 years in other parts of their business. So they've proven it works. They don't need convincing. So like our core audience, the people who are likely to come to the conference, don't need to be convinced that AI matters. We spend our entire year on the audience that like making them care that AI matters. The intro to AI for marketers, which gets like 500 people every time we do that live class. All the content Mike creates. Like we know, I mean, we have like 25,000 visitors a month to the website. Like we cater to the intro audience that's just trying to like see if they should care. We need the people who already care because they're the ones that are likely going to show up. Problem is, who are those people? Who actually understands AI and cares? Because our data tells us like there aren't that many. So a couple of weeks ago, a month or two ago, I came up with this theory of this AI adoption model. This like basically, I think I've told this story on a webinar or something, but like the Fermi paradox of AI. So Fermi paradox is you look up at the universe and like all these stars, all these exoplanets, like all this stuff, and yet no intelligent life. Like where is everybody? Is the Fermi paradox. I feel that way about AI. We know it's critical. It's affecting all these things like trillions of dollars of annual impact. And yet you look around marketing, you look at the top CMOs, according to all the lists of like, these are the 50 best CMOs in the world. And yet nothing, like they're not talking about AI. They don't have public points of view on AI. So it's like, well, who does? Like who in the marketing organization is actually already using it or knows they should? And so we came up with this theory that like, they may have digital in their title. So maybe it's chief digital marketing officers, not just the chief marketing officers. They probably have if they have personalization in their title, they don't have a job if they don't understand AI in 2 years, maybe 2 months. Data and analytics is another one. Digital transformation was one. Let me say, I don't know, Mike, you might think of some other ones. MarTech, pricing was another one. Like if your job is pricing and you're not using AI, I don't even know how you have a job right now. Like predicting pricing models at scale is the perfect example where AI could be applied. Digital marketing, mentioned e-commerce, revenue, maybe. So we basically created this hierarchy of based on your job title and keywords within the job title. We kind of built a predictive model around the likelihood you would be to be adopting AI over the next 12 months, and then the impact AI would have on your career over the same given period of time. And then you project that out over 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, and you start to actually like see the movement in the industry of the necessity that people have AI. And what we know is like these general marketers, there's 11 million of those. And someone may get by for the next 5 years without knowing about AI or caring about AI. It's just not in their function. Like, maybe it's like, I'm a PR major. Maybe it's a PR person. Like they could get by for 5 years without AI. Like not gonna be a groundswell where every PR agency all of a sudden figures out how to build smarter media databases and target journalists based on actual interest and using natural language processing to read everything they write and have it predict what pitch you should make and when. Like that should happen. It's not. Like, so you got time if you're in PR, but if you're in personalization, automation, data, pricing, digital, you don't have time. Like it's here. Like it's changing your career. And you either move or you don't.
Yeah,
I'm going to take a sip of tea now, Mike.
I couldn't agree more with that. I was actually just on a like Twitter live chat with Content Marketing Institute. Since I am speaking at their content tech conference, I think later in May 31st to June 2nd. And they asked, what are the top mistakes marketers make when it comes to AI? And, in the past, I probably would have given them like 5 to 7 things that people do wrong when they're piloting AI. People do wrong when they're thinking about what AI can do. But I gave him one answer this time because it's just really readily apparent to me. The biggest mistake is not thinking they need to care about it right now. And it's either out of fear or it's either out of ignorance, thinking this doesn't apply to me. And it's like, it's going to apply to you whether you like it or not. And I think the biggest mistake is sitting around thinking you don't have to pay attention to it now, or like thinking, oh, okay, I'll get to that later next year or whatever. No, that's a critical error, I would argue, in someone's marketing career today.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what we talked about episode 14 was like what is lost and what is gained and when, specific to every career. You just think about what is AI going to do to your career path and what's the opportunity for you in that when you accept that it's here and it's going to change stuff. Um, so to get to the core of what we wanted to cover today, which is like AI for event marketing, and we use I don't know like a dozen different AI tools every week, like
Yeah.
different functions, and Mike can get into some of that. Um, but for event marketing in particular, we had to stop and think. So when we go back to that whole idea of the more intelligent, more human, it's like, well, how are we making this more intelligent? I'm building this intent score, loyalty score, engagement score, which is going to dramatically improve our ability to do personalized outreach and customized learning journeys for people. Like it's a really important step forward for us to help people figure out AI and apply it to their careers. But it's not using AI yet. Like we're not, there's nothing. It's me crunching data and thinking about which signals might matter and looking at past buying data and putting conversion rates related to past lists. But it's basically just going in HubSpot, building dozens of lists, and then predicting which signals will have high, medium, and low intent, and then assigning a score to them. That's the process. And then taking those scores and then prioritizing who we're doing personal outreach to. So like if you're listening to this and me, Kathy, somebody from our team personally reaches out to you in a week, 2 weeks, whatever, it's because we see intent signals. Like we see that like, okay, this is someone who cares. How can we help them? Like our approach right now is like, what do you need in your learning journey? If it's not the conference, that's cool. We have 900 articles. We have access to 70 like instructors and past speakers. Like we have experts in this area. Like, what do you need? And our feeling is like, if we build this institute around just help people along their learning journey and along their career path, yes, we have to make money as a company like that obviously we won't be around. But if we focus on the learner, if we focus on the professional, and we ask that question enough times, what do you need? Where are you at? What are you trying to do in your career? And we then build sessions and online courses and webinar. Like if we create the content around answers to those questions, then everybody wins. Like, and so that's the theory here. So the question becomes like, well, how do we make our event marketing smarter as we're going through this beyond just some obvious human based things? So Mike and I thought, I was like, well, the two ways we teach people to do this is one, the use case model. So if you've taken our intro to AI for marketers class, or if you've even taken the online course about how to get started with AI, the use case model is make a list of all the things you do. So we could just take our event marketing, like personalized emails, picking segments, creating lists, building lead scores, writing email copy, picking CTAs, like just create a list of all these things we do to do our marketing, targeting companies in certain geographic regions, whatever it is. Then just go through and assign what would be the value if there was an AI tool that could help us do this, could augment our ability to do this better, or even automate in some cases this process, like performance reporting. What if we just used AI to automate all the performance reporting so we didn't have to spend time doing it? So that's a use case model. And then you go through and say, okay, is there tech to actually do this? Like, do we have the ability to actually automate this? So that is one way we could do this. We could just, me, Mike, Kathy McPhillips, our chief growth officer, we could just sit down, make a list of the 50 things we got to do over the next 11 weeks or whatever it is, and then just like find AI tools from. But we actually thought the more productive thing to teach you all is the problem-based model. So in a problem-based model, you identify a problem statement, you come up with the issues and drivers that are causing that problem, you assign a value to solving the problem, and then you come up with a hypothesis of how to solve it. And then you go through a matrix like, okay, what are all the ways we could do this? And all along the way, you're kind of validating the issues and drivers were correct and all this stuff. So we chose to like go down the problem-based model for you today. And actually, like, again, behind the curtain, here's what's going on. Here's what we're thinking about in real time, justifying potential uses of AI to ourselves in real time that we may ourselves go act on tomorrow. So that's kind of where we're at. So what I want to do is when we teach the problem-based model, we'll tell you like, oh, sometimes like it can take 3 months. we did this in 3 minutes. Like, no lie. Like Mike and I got on the call 5 minutes before we started this, and we're like, all right, let's go problem-based model. Okay, pull it up. So in our chapter, I don't even know the chapter, Mike, chapter 4 of our
Yeah,
book,
I think
Getting
it's
Started with AI, this framework is in there. So go buy the book. Everything we're about to tell you is written out in page with an example of email marketing. So we came up with a problem statement as the first step. So we said, we need to sell 300 tickets to an AI conference in a world in which travel restrictions, health and safety concerns, and the economy present unprecedented challenges to achieve the goal. So I was taught that like 8 weeks, I think it was 8 weeks out from your conference, you should be 50% sold. So that gives you a benchmark. Like at 8 weeks, it's like, okay, cool. If we're at 150, we should be on target to hit 300 tickets. Like that would be the pre-pandemic world formula. Now, again, if you're an event marketer, spent 30 years in this, and I'm wrong on that formula, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Like I would love to hear from you. I hope this starts a conversation with event marketers. We are not here saying we figured this out. We are telling you we're doing this in real time, trying to figure this out, and hopefully it helps you. So the value to solving this problem to us, because again, problem statement should always come with a value statement, is 300 times X, whatever it is we think we can sell a ticket for. And then there's the future value. So I think like right now on our site, the tickets are $13.99, I want to say. So let's just theoretically say it's 300 times $13.99 would be the value. That's the direct value. The indirect value is we also rely on sponsorship revenue and support to run an event like this. And if we don't deliver 300 attendees, why would they sponsor next year? So like it is on us as an event that we have a responsibility to not only the attendees to connect them with the right technologies, but to the technology companies to connect them with the right attendees. And so the future value of the event, so it's beyond just the 300 times $13.99. It is, well, what is the loss opportunity next year if we don't deliver? And so you can actually make a case like, okay, this is a much, much more valuable problem to solve than it might look like on the surface. So I would and Mike and I have done this for different corporations as a consulting gig. Like we'll go in and run this problem-based model in a consulting format to help them figure out how to use AI to improve their business. So I would stress very strongly, problem statement has to be accompanied by a value statement. You have to know the value of what you're solving because that tells you how much you're willing to spend to solve it. Any thoughts on problem statement, value statement, Mike?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Like the value of it is how, if you are someone that is more of an early adopter of AI and trying to pilot these projects, that is the number that gets you buy-in from executives and from colleagues, because then you can say, hey, it's worth spending a nominal amount of money to test out a certain tool over 3 to 6 months or whatever to potentially have this much gain. It becomes a business use case that I think that's a really streamlined way to describe these things. But yeah, for our purposes, it's just that it's very straightforward. Sell tickets.
And then in the problem-based framework, then you do what are the issues and what are the drivers. So for us, let's say issues, and again, this could apply to any event, not just ours, slower than usual ticket sales. So maybe you're not trending at that 8-week mark. And again, it might be the new normal. Like maybe everybody waits till 6 weeks out to buy tickets these days. I don't know. Like I only know a few events that have actually been run in person in the last 3 months since we sort of came out of the pandemic into the endemic or whatever it is. So I don't know what the model should be, but it would appear it's not what it used to be. Price sensitivity. Are people more sensitive to price due to the economy, due to inflation? And is that changing by day? To Mike's point to start, if we wake up and the market is down 4% again, did that just increase the sensitivity to price of our buyers?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting quick point to dwell on is the speed at which things change, because obviously we always knew like inflation could be a serious issue down the road, but like how quick did the narrative go from like, okay, like we're getting out of the COVID, post-COVID recovery. And then suddenly every single person is concerned about this in a big way. And that's because it happened so fast and so dramatically, probably spurred on by, things like war in Ukraine. This stuff is happening over a matter of days and weeks. Like you thought you had to move fast before. That's like a laughably slow pace now.
Yep. Another one is location. So we love Cleveland. We're from Cleveland. Cleveland has hosted tons of international events. I mean, they had the NFL draft here last year in the middle of the pandemic. Like it was like the first coming out party of events, period, was like the NFL draft in April last year in Cleveland. Our friend Joe Polizzi ran Content Marketing World in Cleveland. It's still in Cleveland. I mean, there were 4,500 people a year coming to Cleveland, marketers. Like, we know people will come to Cleveland for conferences. The convention center is amazing. It's amazing entertainment, restaurants, like the Iron Chefs. Like, it's an amazing city. But is it have the same perception when people are less likely to want to travel? Like, if you haven't been on a plane in 2 years and you're going to get on a plane for the first time, is it to go to Cleveland or not? Like, we don't know. So, but you have to accept that, like, oh, okay, like, well, that wasn't a variable 3 years ago. Like, never heard a single person say, I'm not coming to the event because it is in Cleveland. People love it. Like, on the surveys after the fact, it's like, love the city, like, love everything. Like, so non-issue before, maybe an issue now. I don't know. So, issues: slower than usual ticket sales, price sensitivity, location. Drivers: what's causing those issues? COVID. Can't get around it. It is what it is. Inflation in the economy, war. People maybe don't want to travel. And then the other one I'll throw in there is, again, we're not starting with 100,000. We're not a media company that's starting with 100,000 readers that you just need to get 300 of the 100,000. We built a community from nothing, like, at a time when no one else was talking about AI and marketing, at a time when the platform companies had probably fewer than a handful of AI and ML employees working on marketing software, making it smarter. So in 2016, this was not a discussion outside of probably Salesforce and Adobe. Like, I don't even know, Google, Microsoft, obviously, but like, marketing software, it wasn't there yet. So we got in really early and tried to create a movement and build a community around something that we thought was going to change the world and change the industry. And we believe that more now than ever. But we don't have that massive engaged community yet. So how do you, like, get to where we need to go without that community right away? So, okay. So then the hypothesis. So problem statement, issues, drivers, hypothesis, like, how do we think we can solve this? So again, I just grabbed this right out of our ticket sales. This is like literally verbatim from our ticket sales strategy brief. The greatest indicator of probability to purchase is intent, followed by loyalty, engagement, personal connections, and then strangers. And the strangers, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on today, but that's like strangers that fit ICP kind of data. We need to focus our personal outreach on the highest probability segments in order to reach our ticket sales goal. The higher the probability of conversion, the more personalized the communications. So what gives this strategy a greater probability of success than previous models? Stronger focus on intent signals, integration of recency into signals. So like, if you're a marketer and you're building a lead score on, like, somebody's been viewed 50 pages or more on my website. When? 3 years ago? Have you been on the site since then? So if your lead score isn't factoring in recency, so for us, I usually run it back. Like, let's say an example would be 50 plus page views on the site and has been on the site in the last 6 months or been on the site in the last 12 months. So like, I know that they are still them, that they are still active. We give preference, like for our online academy, if you've been a member ever, like if you've ever previously purchased the annual or the monthly plan, you would get point values. But if you're an active paid member, you're going to get more. So like, recency is always thought of within these signals. And then using low to high scoring system for each segment, and then prioritization of contacts based on segments. So our hypothesis is that if we can get more predictive on probability to purchase, and we can get more personalized in our communications to, again, help them along their learning journey, like know what their learning journey is and help them, then we should be able to achieve it. Then the questions becomes, okay, great. If we believe that hypothesis to be true, how the hell do we do it? Like, where do we go smarter? So what we have been focusing on is human powered, manual, build a better lead score, not a smarter. It's not learning on its own. That lead score isn't going to improve unless I improve it. And this is a really important example. So I build this intent-based score. We start running it tomorrow, personal outreach based on it. And let's say it starts working, and we get conversions coming from that. Unless I go into that intent score, look at conversion data and tweak the weights, change the point values based on, it's like, oh, wow, that was a signal I didn't think would be an indicator of purchase, but 44% of people that had that have now purchased. And that was 7 of them. Like, is that enough to say that that's actually a real signal, or is that just noise? That's where AI comes in. So if we were using AI to do lead scoring, machine learning would constantly be analyzing the data and improving the score itself. So right now we are living in a world where I built a score. We will use that score to manage not only personal outreach, but targeted email communications and ad targeting, all these other things. But it's not going to get smarter unless I make it smarter. What we want to do with everything we do, and this is where AI comes in, everything we do as marketers should get smarter with the help of machines. It should continually learn and augment what we're building, the strategies we create. And so I'll kind of start as like a jumping off point because I know, Mike, like you put a bunch of ideas in here, of ways we could. And I'll let you kind of tee up like, this is not, we're doing this. This isn't like we're saying you have to do it. We are now going to share our thoughts on how event marketing can become more intelligent and more human, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, to start, like Paul mentioned, I mean, we are experimenting at any given time with dozens of potential use cases for AI across some of our core operations, email, content, ads. There's probably a handful of others I'm not thinking of, social. And today we use probably a dozen different tools to power our strategy. And I can tell you for a fact, we have saved probably hundreds of hours and gotten much better results using a lot of AI tools in email and content marketing and advertising specifically. And what we've known for years is that every area of marketing is not created equal in how mature AI is in that segment. So content marketing is hugely advanced thanks to advancements in language models. Advertising is hugely advanced because there's so much data to learn from. I'm not seeing the same thing, like I said, in event marketing. I think it's actually relatively immature. So we're using a bunch of AI tools for use cases in our business and other areas. But honestly, I think a lot of AI that we could be using in event marketing potentially doesn't exist or isn't far enough along yet. So a lot of these are kind of, I know these things are possible in other marketing segments or other industries. They could all be applied to the event world. So even just starting with really basic things like predict for me the likelihood of someone to buy a ticket. And not only that, predict the likelihood of them to buy bulk tickets. Presumably, some event expert out there with 30 years of experience in our space knows who is most likely to buy a ticket, what's the average income, what's the average title, what's the what size organizations usually buy in bulk. I mean, there's probably some data out there, or could be if it was tracked somewhere, say in an event management platform. All of that could be used for really smart predictions over time.
And if you, Mike, I just thought this, like, again, that's the whole point of this. Like, Mike and I did not go, we haven't prepared for this section at all. So this is going to be probably a lot of off the cuff things. Awesome if it's on your own site and your own historical ticket sales data. How much better if you're an event marketing software company and you can anonymize ticket sales data for everybody and you have hundreds of thousands or millions or billions of data points potentially. Like this has been my argument for like HubSpot and other CRMs. Like if you anonymize all the performance data you have access to, man, could you build like smarter solutions? Like where is it? Like why don't we have these predictive models yet? And I made a note in your show notes, like if you match this predicting likelihood to buy a ticket with a confidence level, and this is like how Salesforce, pipelines would work. Confidence level, I now can get to like what the number I want, which is total event sales and revenue based on the current model of the likelihood to buy across the entire contact database. And your other one about the bulk tickets, like what is the overall conversion rate is predicted to be 2.7% with an average purchase price of X. And here you go. Like, and then each day you're just looking at the confidence level and looking at how that number moves rather than us picking a number out of the air. I'm like, I don't know. I think we can sell 325 at 1490. Like we're just guessing. Like we're not analysts. Like maybe there's like data geeks that are really good at this stuff, but we're not. Like we're marketers and we can run pivot tables and we can build formulas. But like at the end of the day, that's not our world. Like that's where AI should be able to help the average marketer.
That's really interesting. The point you made about platforms is like, I would love to just, if anyone's listening or afterwards, we can look up like, what are the top 3 platforms we would consider event platforms for our type of event? Like one of them has presumably tens of thousands of customers. I assume, given how many
Yeah, we
events
have,
and how like we should be like that, whoever they are, I would love to know if they have this on like a
or
roadmap.
God damn, we're just gonna like give away like trade secrets or like some big competitor's gonna go do this. So like if you're an event company, let's say you're maybe a publicly traded event company and you own hundreds of events, you can anonymize, or you don't have to anonymize, you can aggregate sales data. Damn.
Yeah. You would at least, and even if it wasn't perfect to start, you would at least learn more than you have today. I guarantee you.
All right. If you work at a major event company and you have hundreds, dozens or hundreds of events, like give us a call.
You
I
should
think I have an idea of what you need to build.
slash buy a ticket to the event because
Yeah. Why don't
that's
you
like
yeah,
worth it alone, what we
buy,
just talked about.
buy a ticket? I'll buy you a drink. You buy a ticket. I think, okay, shit. I think I know how to. Okay. I'm not going to talk more about that, but I think I know what to do. Go ahead. Continue.
So, so this actually kind of plays into some of these newer factors that are affecting the event world. I mean, this would be, I think, very, very difficult to start with, but it's possible. Is why can't we have tools already that are AI tools that look at things like market and economic factors. We have tons of sentiment analysis tools that tell you brand sentiment and commentary on social for whatever segment you're looking at. Presumably, there would be a couple signals where you could say, okay, show me like a combo of like fuel prices, airline tickets with inflation and fuel being crazy. And then show me like in this segment, you know, commentary around events or even around the pandemic, perhaps. I think it's very vague, but I think there are probably signals where you can say, okay, if I could analyze a certain group's commentary on social media over a 3-month period, what are they negative, positive, or neutral on in-person things? Like, are they all super psyched that they never have to go into the office again? Or if they say, oh my God, I'm not traveling, looks terrible, like that could tell us something about sentiment, about like almost physical likelihood to physically attend an event.
You know what I want? I want one for speakers where I can feed it a list. Let's theoretically say top 50 CMOs in the world. I'll feed it names. Maybe I can give it Twitter accounts. And then I want the AI to go out using natural language processing, analyze all their public data, every talk they've given that's transcribed, every social media share, every interview in a publicly available media. And I want to report a brief handed to me by the machine that highlights the top 5 to 7 CMOs who have a public point of view on AI and summarizes it for me.
Yep.
And there's my speakers.
That would be awesome.
So if you're a tech entrepreneur out there and you want to build that, give me a call. We'll just build it ourselves. But I want that. And I want the same thing. Going back to PR, I want the same thing for media relations. Here's the topic our client or we want to talk about in the media. Go analyze all the journalists in that space, find the people already talking about it, their sentiment around it, their tone around it. Like, come back to me and say, here's the 4 journalists you should be talking to. Here's the angles that would resonate best with them based on their personalities, based on what they're doing. This is doable. Like, I know a guy who could build this stuff. I may call him after this. Like, this is not hard. Like, what we're telling you doesn't exist, but I promise you there are people who could build this probably in a weekend with the right access to data. Like, these are tools that truly can be built in real time almost.
I think another interesting one that is much closer, honestly, it should exist already. I'm sure that you could use an existing tool for this if you were at the enterprise level. We're sometimes a little too small to be doing, 1,000 A/B tests across 200,000 emails at this stage. But really, if you are running a huge conference, if you're one of these publicly traded companies that runs all these, I would seriously be looking at some type of tool to, at the very least, do 1,000 A/B tests at once of every possible combo of general event, subject line, copy, angle, like focus on in one email, the awesomeness of getting back together in person, see if that resonates and who it resonates with. See if cutting prices works in another email. And you mentioned inflation and trying to do everyone a solid. There's 100 different things you can do. And we do this again, manually.
We're like, what message do you think resonates?
Right.
We need to talk about the economy.
Right.
talk about location, like where do we go? And
And
go ahead.
I almost think and it just goes down so many levels because then you have data on, oh, shoot, out of 2,000 people we'd like to attend, 20 of them are really, really strongly caring about getting back in person. Let's give them a discount or give them a hotel room or something. You can personalize promotions endlessly. You can literally be selling almost like a differently structured event to different segments.
So as an industry, as a marketer, let's all agree personalization is not insert name, insert company. What's possible with personalization is so far beyond if that's what your personalization is today. And trust me, I'm lumping us into this. That is personalization. Like we're going further down, looking at intent signals, and we're trying to like get to messaging that resonates at an individual level, or at least within a segment. But we're not there like fully. So like what I'm telling you is marketing can be smarter now. You have to go seek it out though. Like it's not just universally embedded in the CRM system you already use or the automation or the email marketing platform. They don't doing this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting about these ideas as well is, we're saying here, like, okay, some of these solutions probably don't exist and won't for some years yet. They should tomorrow, but the strategy behind them you could start using now in a
Yeah.
lot of these areas, I think. And I wonder how many people listen to the lead score and intent signals you mapped out, and you kind of think it's obvious, but I don't know. Have you ever gotten like, I don't know. I haven't gotten to too many events in the last year, but like, can't remember a single email or like communication I got that like that looked anything like that.
That seemed to know you or where you were
Yeah,
at or
it's
anything.
always the same event email.
Right.
I
It's the
know it
price.
because
It's
I
the
read it and delete it usually, like,
right.
because I'm not in like, I haven't been engaged with the brand or the event for a year or whatever.
And maybe it's important real quick, take a step back because the core to doing AOL is the data. So like we create, so we have 29,000 opt-in contacts. In a good month, it's like five to 700 new contacts come in through webinars, through downloads of our state of the industry report, through our intro to AI for marketers class, whatever it may be. Not paying. This is just like demand gen, basically. Like people opt in. If we had been better over the years at collecting the right information, we could already be there.
Mm.
So like we ask in our state of the industry, what areas of marketing are you involved in? The size of the company, what industry, like, the same stuff that you're used to filling out a form, but like, what if that filling out, like when you, I'm trying to think of like a social media app I went into recently, I took screenshots as I was going, where it's like, what are your interest areas? Oh,
Mm.
TED, like go to TED Talk. Like they do this for TED. You go up and say, what I'm even interested in? What am I trying to do in my career? What areas? And then they're going to tailor the videos they recommend to you. So TED is one that actually does this based on your profile that you shared with them.
Mhm.
So to get to this end game of deep personalization, you need the data. Like you need to know what this, and we can't get it all from publicly available sources. We're not going to read their Twitter feed using IBM Watson and like just get everything we need, but you can get some. But you need to you have to have a strategy to collect the data and then how to house it and how to like process that correctly and keep it clean.
Yep. Yeah, and as we kind of, move forward with the event and, potentially like new website and things like that, we're already starting to think about, like, that was the first thing we started talking about is how do you standardize the data we collect moving forward, and how is that going to play into AI, potentially AI models and tools in the future. Um, here's another one that I thought was really interesting based on our own outreach that we are doing is I think it'd be really interesting to use AI to tell me, like, just look at LinkedIn profiles and tell me what are, like, I could sit down and put in where I went to school, what age I am, what, I don't know what my major was, what past jobs I've had. It could look at that in my profile, tell me who has those in common. If it does, like at scale, I think it
Right.
does a little bit. It'll show you in your network, but like finding personal touch points with people is an instant way to start a really authentic conversation,
I
right?
will say one idea I had, that I guess you're welcome to steal this, like all these other things I'm about to tell you. So if you're not a Sales Navigator user, Sales Navigator is awesome to get like really drill into segments and try and find people and like market size. So again, when I was talking about people with personalization in their title, digital in their title, pricing, and we have all that data. So through Sales Navigator, we're able to go in and say, okay, how many people in companies with 200 or more employees in these 7 industries have personalization in their title, have conversational in their title, and then able to prioritize outreach. The other thing I just thought of though is a backdoor way to use AI is go into Sales Navigator, build a lead list of people who have already bought. So
Mm, yeah.
LinkedIn uses AI as a recommender system, as like a matching system, and it tries to identify people who look like other people in your lead list. So if you either upload or add them, I don't, the most efficient way to do it is probably upload a list, and then you save that as like a Macon 22 customer list, and then you say, give me matches, it's going to find other people that look like those people, have similar backgrounds, similar education, but whatever this, I don't know what the signals are. That's LinkedIn doesn't tell you what their signals are. You could guess, but they're using machine learning. I can almost guarantee you to find leads like the ones you think are valuable. But rather than me guessing, like I think people with personalization would come to the event, why don't I just take our list from the last 2 events, upload that, and say, just show me people like these people. I may be completely wrong. Maybe they aren't personalization and digital, and maybe it's some audience I'm not even thinking of. And that's where AI's magic comes in, is finding the audience segments that you don't even know exist. And it might be sitting in your data. And I could build all the signals I want all day long on lead scores, and I may not be thinking about the most obvious thing.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's where the segmentation, you get these almost endless possibilities, because within that, finding people you didn't even know you had, I think also you can do that from an interesting topic perspective where you say, it would be awesome. One of the things I would love to see is AI that will tell me within a given industry, what are the top 5 most popular subsegments of that industry among whatever group. That would be something I would look at when creating my conference agenda, right?
Yep.
Because you can say, hey, you and I are interested in something, or we think this is really popular. And we kind of do that in a manual way today.
Yeah.
We build our agenda around what we know to be popular in our content. So that's smart, really
Right.
smart way to do it. But like, it takes a long time.
And the same with online courses. Like as we're building out Academy and making more on-demand courses available, we look at the content marketing data. So like MarketMuse is a tool that Mike uses to build content strategy. So we can use that to look at demand for specific types of information, and then say, okay, let's parlay that into sessions at Macon. And what Mike and I tend to do is like, we think of all content in this like funnel or in a journey where it's like, okay, let's start with a pillar page. That pillar page does really well, like AI for social media, I think is our most popular page the last 30 days. If that does really well, then it should have a session at Macon. And if that, there's demand there, like it should have an on-demand course, and maybe it should have a certification course, something bigger and so we think about like all the ways to carry this through. And it starts often with something we publish on the blog, but we're thinking long-term about it. And we are using AI to inform the initial decisions that are made.
All right, I have one more I want to throw at you, and then we can we can move on. So we had talked actually the other day about thinking more creatively about our event and sponsor space physically at the conference center, convention center,
Yeah.
and saying like, oh, could we actually do this? Could we do that? Like, I feel like tomorrow there could be some app where you go up on the second floor balcony, you scan, look at the floor space, and it tells you, okay, flip through some options. Here's how many booths you can put down. Here's how many, like 5x5, whatever the smallest, medium, largest ones. Here's all the permutations of different types of sponsorships you could have. That would be amazing. But I feel like there's apps that already do this.
Yeah. And that's kind of a parallel path, and someone has to be doing it. Like, I'm going to be shocked if we say this and someone isn't doing this. So if you go to any major retailer, like online retailer for furniture, if you go to the Apple store, if you go to Home Depot, that whole like using augmented reality to view the thing in the space, like you could totally do that with sponsors, like where you can view their booth. So like, send us a picture of your 20 by 20 booth. Boom, there it is, visualized in our exhibit hall, and you can actually like.
You want to get really futuristic? What if there were? This is a wild idea, but what if there was actually an augmented reality app that the event attendees had, that when they scan the ceiling or the walls, other sponsor logos and QR codes and information, like you could sell space everywhere.
Digital space, virtual space, metaverse space.
The metaverse space. Yeah, it wouldn't be for as much, but
I didn't think we were
like,
going to the metaverse. Oh, damn. All right.
There's like, I feel like there's a lot of, I hope some event marketing people and planners listen to this or see some content related to it, because the world, it's just endless possibilities from what little I know already of the event marketing world.
Yeah, so I'll and if you have any other ones you want to touch on before we go here, but I'll kind of recap some of the big ones I thought about going in. And again, Mike and I didn't compare lists coming into this. It was just sort of like throwing some things down. So I had NLP for social media shares from contacts on our list. So um, let's say I have my high intent list and there's hundreds or thousands of people's on that high intent list. Right now, all I would know is I could set up alerts if someone comes back to the event site that's on that list. So it's like, oh, Mike is on the register page right now, and I can get the alert, and we can choose to be more human and not be creepy and send the, hey, I see you're on the register page email that some companies will send, and then they'll call you and text you. And like, that is not more human. Let's like, but what value-based thing can I give? So if I know Mike's in content marketing, I know his title, I know his role, I know his loyalty signals, that he's a member of our academy and he's watched these three courses. Like, I can know a lot about Mike that can lead to a very personal touch point with him, saying, hey, Mike, like, I know you've taken these courses before. Like, what is it you're looking for at Macon? How can I help you? How can I make sure that it's going to be a fit for you? If you're going to spend the money and time to be here, how can I make sure it's a fit? I can do that from all my CRM data if it's structured right. But what I don't have visibility into is, what is Mike saying on Twitter? What is he saying on LinkedIn? What is he saying on Facebook if it's public? Like Reddit, like where else is Mike talking? That might be an intent signal. So maybe Mike shared on Twitter this morning that he's given a talk at Content Tech. If Mike is a high intent buyer, I should know that. Like, I should be getting an alert that something is watching his social stuff and pulling for me something it thinks is important and summarizing it for me, and then giving me an alert saying, hey, Mike's gonna be a content tech. Now I can reach out and say, Mike, I'm going to be a content tech. Would love to talk to you about getting you to Macon. Like, I think you'd love it, basically. So if I could enrich my CRM data, my first party data, with some AI that pulls from what's going on online and then analyzes it for me and summarizes it and flags what's important, not just like, here's his last 10 tweets. No, what I want to know what's important in those 10 tweets related to what I'm trying to do with him. So that was one. Pricing is the other. Pricing is a guessing game. It's a pure guessing game. And with all the variables we're dealing with, it's even more of a guessing game. And so like, there's lots of ways to look at it, but the reality is humans suck at pricing. Like, that is absolutely an area where I just don't think humans will play much of a role in pricing in the future. And certainly like airlines and stuff like that, they're already not. Like, it's been 7 years plus they've been using dynamic pricing. So Uber, like, you think about all these sites that use dynamic pricing based on demand, based on whatever. And we don't do any of that stuff. Like, we're not even thinking about dynamic pricing. Personalization, we've harped on. Prediction, we've talked a lot about prediction. Conversational is a big one for me. So like, our site just has a chat bot. It's a HubSpot chat, whatever HubSpot calls their chat bot. And it's just simple. Like, it's like, hey, if you have any questions about the event, like, it's personalized in that we know you're on an event page and we're showing you the employees who work with the event. But beyond that, like, we're not pulling in that you're on the intent list or you're on the loyalty list or anything like that, or that we know you like content marketing, or that we know you took these 2 on-demand courses. Like, none of that's factored in. But in a true conversational AI agent, like a Drift might do, or a live person, something like that, you can get to that. Like, you can know that person in their journey, and you can engage with them in real time on the event site. It's more like an e-commerce thing. Like, think about all the best e-commerce sites. That's what you are. You're an event. Like, you are an e-commerce site. And think about how you're getting blown away by the tech that other e-commerce companies are running. You're thinking about yourself as an event company, not an e-commerce company. Also related to the sessions, conversational AI that recommends sessions and speakers. So not only like, hey, Mike, I see you're here. Here's a discount code. Why don't you buy? It's like, hey, Mike, you might be really interested in these 3 speakers because we know he's interested in them, because it's tagged on the back end that they're related to things we know he's interested in. And here's like 4 sessions we would recommend. We hope you come. Like, think about the difference between that chat experience where you're like, man, those do look like really good sessions. I think I'm going to come. And they feel like that agent was personal to you. So those were a couple. And then the other ones I throw out, the sales navigator and stuff. So those are like big picture ones I was kind of hot on.
Yeah. I feel like we've almost said too much at this point.
I know. We just made our list like 10 times longer. I
Yeah.
just want to get these 10 emails out. Well, I mean, that's probably sufficient. Maybe we're going to need a part 2 in 6 weeks. Like, we'll tell you it did. But I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't say, like, come to our conference. Like, if this stuff is interesting to you, these conversations need to be happening. Like what we just did, this isn't happening. There's not enough of this, like, what's possible? What can we do now? How can we collectively be better as event marketers, as marketers? And that's what we're trying to do with Marketing AI Conference. So it's just www.maicon.ai, maicon.ai. We'd love you to be there. I mean, it is challenging to create a movement. It is challenging to make people care. And in our case, again, we believe it's so fundamental to the success of your career and your ability to control the narrative. AI can have negative impacts. It can, like, again, if you go back to listen to the last episode, there is a lot of negative. It's going to gradually take away parts of your job. If you're a writer, you're a designer, you're a creator of any kind, it's going to start infringing on things that you do, that you believe to be truly uniquely human. But if you understand that now, you can get out ahead of that and you can figure out what moves to make, what to do with your career to take advantage of it, to let it augment you rather than control you. So I don't know. We believe immensely in what we're trying to do and the importance of it to the business world, to society, to our industry. And we would love for you to be a part of it. And if you have questions, you have thoughts on this session, like, hit Mike and I up on LinkedIn or Twitter. There's so many. I mean, we could probably talk for another hour. Just like, my mind is racing right now.
I know.
Things we need to do or do. So yeah, that would be my call to action. And if the conference isn't for you, that's cool. Like, I get it. Just, like, be a part of the community, get active in our community. Let your voice be heard and help us kind of move this industry forward. Anything from you, Mike? Any final words?
I couldn't have put it better myself. No, just go out and get involved in one way or another. Get started now. Couldn't be more important.
All right. Well, we appreciate all of you listening. And if you are, not on that loyalty list already, if you've been an Academy member or been to Maicon, we appreciate you. If you're a sponsor that's made these first few years possible and help support the conference and the Academy and everything else we're doing, we appreciate you. And if you're on that high intent list, I hope the personalization and the messaging resonates with you and we get you there. And I hope we all find some AI to help us do this all better. So, and event marketers, we love you. Hopefully this gives you a bunch of inspiration. So thanks again. We'll be back next week with another, hopefully really intriguing topic as well. So this has been the Marketing AI Show for Mike and myself. Thanks again for being with us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing AI Show. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And if you're ready to continue your learning, head over to marketingaiinstitute.com. Be sure to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, check out our free monthly webinars, and explore dozens of online courses and professional certifications. Until next time, stay curious and explore AI.